If you want to sleep tonight, I would keep scrolling. Now, I recently had some activity happening in my house, and if you've been following along with my journey, you know I've had paranormal experiences my literal entire life, mostly in a house that I used to babysit for. This time, there is something in my home. This is the first time in years I've had anything that I feel is not a good presence in my home. I'm really good about cleansing my space and keeping the energy good. I don't really know what's going on yet. I haven't even had time, effort, or wanted to put in thinking what this could possibly be. But let me tell you guys what happened to me last night. Sorry. So in my apartment, it's 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and the master bathroom recently, like, the knob on my shower broke, so I'm waiting for maintenance to order the new part for it. So it's been a few days and I'm just using the other bathroom. Thank God I have another bathroom, because in the main bathroom where the knob is broken, it's stuck on like the hottest setting, so it's like too hot to shower. So I've been using the other shower, and the way this is laid out is like the guest bathroom's like right here, and then there's washer and dryer like right there, like in a little hallway. Then there's another room, another bedroom. So basically, when you're in that bathroom looking out and the door is open, you can see into the other bedroom. I took a bubble bath last night because I went to Vegas this weekend for work, and body is just hurting, right? Walked far, did a lot, and it's F1, so you know, it was just a really busy weekend. I was sore. So I'm making this bubble bath and putting in all my works and doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. And every time I'm in the bathroom, my cats like follow me in there. And sorry, that's when was walking in. When I was like getting this bubble bath already, the cats like were waiting outside of, you know how I said like it's bathroom, washer and dryer, room. They're waiting like outside the hallway, and they're just looking like they were scared. I can't describe it, but I was like calling them because I'm like, they always follow me everywhere and they're being weird. I was like, you know, whatever. I leave the bathroom door open because it's just me and my man home, you know, I don't need to close the door. And I submerge myself in the water, right? I'm in the bubble bath, and I hear like a clicking sound, almost like but more like deep. It's hard to describe. I just heard like a clicking sound coming from that bedroom where I could see right into. However, it's nighttime, the light is off, and in my head I'm just like, oh my god, this is kind of the area where I heard that guttural like choking sound a few days prior came from like the kitchen bedroom area. And I'm just like, man. So I figure it might be my boyfriend, you know, so I call out to him. I'm like, hey, like, are you in there? Nothing. Clicking noise stops. Both of my cats are now in the hallway looking straight into that room, but their bodies are like crooked. It's like their heads are mostly looking in the room. They looked like they were afraid. And my dog is always laying in that room. My dog ran out of the room. I'm like, lovely. I'm trying not to look in the room because at this point I know I'm not stupid. This has been happening so much. I don't want to look. I don't want to be scared. Then I hear the choking sound again. It sounds like somebody is choking, but it's very deep and disturbing. It's not like a normal person. It sounds like something out of this world is like choking and gagging. I start freaking out. I start screaming for my boyfriend because I'm like, I'm just so not doing this right now. Like, I got scared. It's very rare for me to get scared anymore, but that really scared me. Then I hear like, sounds like someone coming. So I'm like, thank God, like my boyfriend heard me, right? I turned to look in the hallway. It's like the opening of the bathroom door, like hallway. And I'm gonna describe to you exactly what I saw, and I'm sorry ahead of time for the nightmares. I see something directly in that room, that bedroom, crouching on the floor. It looks like it was just cramped, right? This thing is crouching on the floor with its knees up. It looked a lot like Red, the really bad entity I dealt with when I was in high school that lived in my house. Hair, red, like afro, orange reddish, more so, not like Ariel red, you know? Orange reddish afro. Eyes wide as can be, going like that. Sorry, I think that's what it was. Its hands weren't this way. Its hands were this way. Like that. Like it was, I looked over and it's crouched down with its hands like that, mouth open, eyes wide. Screamed at the top of my lungs. right when like I start really screaming, like when I look at that, my boyfriend turns the corner. He was like, sorry, I was in the bathroom, like going to the bathroom in the other room, like what the fuck's going on, like what, are you okay? And I was hysterical. I literally got up out of this bubble bath completely soaked up, like wet still, soap everywhere, and I'm just like holding on to him, and he's like, what is my poor man, he's like, what's going on, like, what? Oh, here's the kicker. My boyfriend doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, right? Like it's not that he doesn't believe me, it's just one of those things where if you don't experience it, it's really hard to think that that's real, you know? As he's holding me, I start hearing the choking sound again. He turned around and looked in the room and was like, did you hear that? So, yeah, when I get home from work today, we're gonna be doing some serious cleansing of my house because that is not a sight I ever want to see again. And the noises that this thing keeps making is truly like, I think the worst part. The choking, like, gutter, I can't get it out of my head, and I don't know if it's red. I don't know if he came back. I don't know if it's something pretending to be red because it knows what scares me. I have no idea. I will keep you guys updated though. Bye.
The baby eater. When I was 5 months pregnant, I lived in a trailer park surrounded by neighbors, and to the right of me was a woman named Miss Kim, who was Filipino, and her husband, Mr. John, who was a white man. I was 19 and they were in their early 60s, and they were so wise. They were always coming over with food and offering advice. Especially when she found out I was pregnant, she would say, you and baby need to eat. She kept me fed 24/7. She didn't want me doing anything while pregnant. If she saw me doing something like heavy lifting, she would come take over. One day I look out the window and I see Miss Kim pouring corns out on the front porch and the doorsteps, and I asked her why she was doing that. She said it was for the spirits, and towards the end of the month, we'll gather them up and give them to the neighborhood kids. I mean tons of change, probably over $100 that she would give away every month. Around 6 months pregnant, I start having these really vivid nightmares about this big monster trying to get in the house and take my unborn baby. One of these monsters was big and had half a body. It looked like the top half had been ripped away from the bottom half. There was no butt or legs. It was only a head, shoulders, torso with a spine hanging out and big wings, and it flew around like that. Usually it had bat wings, but sometimes it had angel wings. It just depended on the nightmare. The worst part was I would dream that this thing would perch on the side of the trailer and stick its needle-like nose through the wall and pierce my belly and suck the baby out and eat it, and I could see this happening, but I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed. Sometimes I would wake up with that feeling on the back of my neck like it was standing right there. I felt like it was so close to me. These nightmares got so bad that I went to the doctor and they prescribed me Ambien, but I was too scared to take it because Ambien is a very strong medication, so I never took it. I went to Miss Kim to ask her what I could take that would be safe for the baby because she had a lot of knowledge on herbal remedies. I told her what I'd been dreaming about, and she said that's a meningol or a meningol. I can't pronounce it, but either way, it's a baby eater. It steals a baby from your womb. I know I butchered that word. It's been so long since I've heard it, so feel free to correct me in the comments. She said that needle you saw is not its nose, that's its tongue. That's how it sucks the baby out of you, and it uses that to pierce through walls and ceilings to get to you. But what was crazy to me was how she could explain my nightmares to me without me even telling her because she knew exactly what this was and what it was after. She said I can ease some of the nightmares, but they won't completely go away, but we will have to do some things to protect the baby and scare this thing off. So she goes to the feed store and gets 2 big giant bags of pure salt and brings it home and pours it all the way around the trailer, every doorway, window, even threw it on the roof. And she gets a bunch of garlic out of her garden and puts it on thread and hangs it all around the house. She told me to sleep with garlic under my pillow and hold one in my hand and keep it with me at all times, so I did as much as I can remember to. She was up on the roof with a yardstick, put one of these things up over my bedroom, and it did ease my nightmares up. My nightmares went from very vivid and graphic to very hazy and not as often, and I started getting more sleep. Whatever she did helped my morning sickness too, no joke. And Miss Kim would tell me don't go out at night or this thing will get you, but I didn't know if it was even real, and sometimes I had to go out at night because I had things to do. So one night we're coming back from a baby shower around 9:30 at night, and we pull up in the driveway. I'm dozing off, and I see this big winged creature flying around the trees, so I jump and say, what the hell was that? And my partner slammed on brakes and said, you saw it too? I thought it was a giant buzzard. That thing was huge. But it was so dark, and it's in North Carolina. We didn't know if it was a big ass bat, buzzard, or what it was, so we just sat in the car for a minute to wait. We pull up behind the house, and I look over and see Miss Kim and Mr. John standing on their back porch, and Miss Kim's holding a shotgun, and when I get out the car, she said, I told you not to go out after dark. It's here. Get in the house. So I took off running in the house because I was scared. All 4 of us saw whatever it was flying around the trailer park that night. The next day, we come outside, and we find these big, tall bamboo sticks that have sharpened ends like big spears, and they've been jobbed down in the ground, so if anything lands on the trailer, it'll hit these spears first. Miss Kim and her husband had been out back cutting bamboo down in the woods, making spears out of them just in case this thing tried to land on one of our trailers. Now 9 months pregnant, I'm miserable, and I'm laying in the recliner like, oh my God, baby, please come. And all of a sudden I hear boom, boom. And when we go out back, we see Miss Kim on her porch with a 410 shotgun shooting up in the air. She said she was shooting at the Manningal because it was flying around our house. It always came back. One night he went out there and said, I think that's a giant turkey. It's that big. The wingspan is huge, but he could never hit it. For the next few days, all the trailer park would hear is boom, 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 boom from her firing that gun all night, trying to keep this thing away. A lot of the neighbors got mad at her shooting at all times of the night, but she didn't care. She didn't stop. Some of the neighbors thought she was just crazy, but we did have another neighbor who was from Nigeria, and they believed in this thing too, but they called it by a different word, but I can't pronounce it. Finally, I had the baby and I came home, and by then she had taken up all the spears and the trinkets, saying the Manningal was gone, but she left the salt around the trailer because there were other things that could try to hurt us. She said, if you see anything on top of your house, at the window, or at the foot of your bed, you let me know immediately. Miss Kim did not play it, and she was all about helping others. Like, I loved having her as a neighbor. But a couple years later, Miss Kim and Mr. John went back to the Philippines because her family got sick and needed her help, and I missed her so much when they moved. She was all about her culture, her family, her children, and helping others. Just such a strong woman. I always looked up to her. I found out through an old neighbor that her and Mr. John passed away within 30 days of each other. They basically died together, and they were always so close, it made sense.
All right, mama. This about my uncle. I got a question, man. You said that my uncle, the one that do voodoo, he was gonna gift you a stone with Jesus' blood on it.
What he said.
Explain that. Can you go through that real quick, please? Because this is getting crazier and crazier.
He got a little box, and on the inside you open up his red velvet, and he got this little grayish, brownish looking stone. It might be about that big. And he got a little, look on the side of it, he got look like a drop of blood. He said it's Jesus' blood, that we said. I don't know how true it is, but he says, it's a drop of Jesus' blood, he gonna give it to me when he passed. Cause I'm the only one that can work it. He said it got powers.
What type of powers does it have?
I don't know, and I don't want to find out, cause I don't want it.
Give it to me. And I'm gonna say this. Where'd he get the stone from?
I don't know where he get the stone from. He wouldn't tell me.
So for the people,
I don't know.
the people that want to know, is my uncle, is he still alive?
He's still alive.
Okay, and he don't live in the state that we live in. So nah. Oh yeah, he don't stay in the state that we live in. Mama still got his number and all of that. But this stone, he has a stone with a drop of Jesus's blood.
What he said.
Now, you know they say Jesus was so powerful, and it's a story in the Bible, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a story where one of his followers touched like a piece of his clothing from behind, and she was healed. She was bleeding, and she touched a piece of his cloak or...
Bled for 12 years, and she made her way into the crowd, and she just touched the hem of his garment, and her blood stopped.
And she was healed.
She was healed.
So if just touching a piece of Jesus's clothing can heal you.
Not only that, in the lost books of the Bible, you know, it was Mary and Jesus and Joseph. They went somewhere, and Mary was bathing Jesus. She had got his bath water, and there was a lady in the camp, and her son was sick. And so Mary told her to just, if she could just dip her hand in Jesus' bath water and put it on the baby's face, and the baby was healed. Just the bath water healed him.
So imagine how strong it'd be to have some of his blood.
Like some of his blood.
We talking about clothing and you getting healed. We talking about bath water and you getting healed. Imagine his actual blood.
Look, I don't know where he got this stone from. I really don't know where he got it from. I know he gave me this ring. And I've been had this ring for I don't know how long. And it ain't never... I wear it all the time. And I keep it on my hand all the time.
That's crazy. Well, before I go, what do you think that stone can do? What do you think that stone can do? Like, what type of abilities or powers do you think that this stone could do if you was to take a guess?
Well, I don't know. All I know is that he said he gonna give it to me, and I'm the only one that can use it.
You're the only one that can use it?
Yeah. So I'm debating about taking it. I don't know. But he want me to have it, though.
Is he older than you?
Yeah.
Okay.
He my oldest brother. And I got a younger brother. I only got 2 brothers.
Yeah, your youngest one is a ninja, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video.
Yeah.
All right, Mama, love you.
Love you too, and Mama love y'all.
My neighbour's front door has been wide open for 2 days. I didn't think much of it at first. It was 5:30. I'd just returned home from work. When I saw that my neighbour's front door was open, I assumed that she was simply unloading something from her car. I went inside my own house and went through my usual after-work routine, going for a run, then making dinner for my wife, Alice, and me. It was only in the evening that I began to suspect something was wrong. I was taking our dog, Bailey, out for her final walk of the day. I put Bailey's harness on her as she excitedly hopped about, then the 2 of us stepped out into the cool night. After a few seconds, I looked up and noticed that the door to my neighbour's house, the one directly across the street, was still wide open. Also strange was the fact that despite her car being in the driveway, the house was completely dark. Not a single light on inside. I crossed the street. My neighbour is 20-something named Isabel. She seems like a sweet girl, but we aren't exactly good friends. Sometimes I give her lemons from our tree in exchange for figs. That's pretty much the extent of our relationship. Still, the sight of that open door made me uneasy. What if she had some kind of medical emergency and was currently unconscious or worse on the floor of her entryway? After a few steps up the driveway, the leash in my hand went taut. Looking down, I saw that Bailey had seated herself firmly on the ground, refusing to budge, even as I called her name and tugged on the leash. Her ears were pricked up, her eyes fixed on the house like she was waiting for something, though she wasn't growling. I was unnerved by her alert posture and her refusal to walk any closer. I let my voice close the distance between us on my neighbour's threshold. Isabel? It's Brian from the street opposite. Can you hear me? For a moment there was only silence. Then, just as I was about to drop Bailey's leash and walk up the steps to the house, there came a voice from the dark. "Hey, Brian," she said, before coughing once and then clearing her throat. "Sorry, I'm in the middle of dinner. What's up?" I breathed a sigh of relief. "Sorry, I just saw that your front door was open and I wanted to make sure you knew." Strangely, there came another long pause. I knew she was inside the house now and close enough to the door to hold a conversation with me, so what was the delay? "Isabel? Oh, you're so sweet to check in. Yeah, I know it's open. It's just been so hot today that I wanted to let the breeze in. I'll close it soon." "Of course. Have a good night then." "You too." With that, I tugged Bailey back down the driveway, and the 2 of us completed our walk. I returned home, happy that my neighbour was all right, and went to sleep. Saturday was a much-needed lazy day. Woke up at 10, ate the breakfast that Alice made. I spent some time in the backyard with her and Bailey. It was an overcast day, and by 3 p.m. or so, a light rainfall forced us back inside. Alice took a call from her sister, who lives at the edge of our neighbourhood, while I went to the living room to throw on some television. Except before I could get comfortable, I looked out the front window and was surprised to see that Isabel's front door was open again. Open again, I wondered, or was it never shut? I got up to close the window and studied the house across the street. The rain was coming down harder by then, so there wasn't a single light on inside of Isabel's house. I turned to look at Bailey, who was laying on a nearby couch, and saw that she was also looking out the window, ears pressed against her head. She glanced at me briefly, then refocused her attention outside. I couldn't tell if she was simply people-watching or if somehow she too could sense something wrong. Just then, Alice walked into the living room. She was no longer on the phone. She greeted me with a strange, almost nervous smile. "That was an odd conversation," she said, taking a seat next to Bailey. "Why, everything all right?" "I don't know. Clara saw a woman peeking into her house a few nights ago." "What?" "Yeah, creepy, right? She's not the only one. Apparently there've been a few reports on her side of town. Other people experiencing the same thing. Nothing stolen, no one hurt. At least that Clara knows of, but it's still pretty weird. Let's make sure we look up extra well tonight." My thoughts drifted to my neighbour. I asked my wife what this woman looked like. Like I said, Isabel and I weren't close, but I knew she had recently gone through a difficult breakup with a long-term boyfriend. It was far-fetched to assume a connection between Isabel and the mystery woman, but who knew? Heartbreak makes people do crazy things, and maybe there was some link between the two? Alice hesitated for a minute. "Well," she eventually said, "you know Clara, she's got a real superstitious way about her. She's always telling stories." "What does that mean?" "Well, it means you've got to take this with a grain of salt." When Alice relayed Clara's description of the woman, I felt a chill run down my spine. Clara said that the woman was tall and gaunt, enough so that she originally mistook her for a man, and that her eyes looked unnaturally deep-set as though they were too far back in her skull. Apparently, when she saw Clara had spotted her, she had given Clara a big smile before retreating into the night. Apparently, when she smiled, she had too many teeth. I was silent for a moment, unsure what to make of Clara's morbid sighting. Love, was Isabel's front door open this morning? She considered my question as she pet Bailey. I think it was. If nothing else, I figured I should at least tell Isabel to be careful. I put on my raincoat and headed outside, carefully making my way down the wet driveway. Once I made it to the sidewalk, I heard frantic barking coming from behind me. Turning around, I saw Bailey in the window, her paws resting on the sill, her growls and whimpers rising over the heavy rain. My wife appeared next to her a few seconds later. She attempted unsuccessfully to comfort Bailey, giving me a questioning look as she did so. I gave her a shrug in return and then crossed the street. I stopped at the bottom of Isabel's porch steps and listened. Like before, I could hear someone inside, though I couldn't exactly tell what was going on. I heard a deep, wet, ripping sound like something being torn. Also, like before, I couldn't see a thing inside the house. A voice called out from the dark interior. Brian? Yeah, hello again, I said. I was only wondering in retrospect how she could have known it was me. Listen, sorry to bother you again, but I wanted to tell you something. Do you mind coming out for a minute? Brian? She repeated, tone almost reprimanding. This isn't a good time. You always seem to catch me in the middle of a meal. Oh, it won't take long, I tried persuading. And she didn't respond. Isabel, there's been some suspicious activity around the neighborhood recently. I know you like to keep the door open for the breeze, but maybe you ought to keep it shut today. Oh, but I'm so comfortable here on the couch. Why don't you close the door for me? The couch? Wasn't she in the middle of a meal? Even if she were eating on the couch, her voice sounded so close, like she couldn't have been more than a few feet away from me. Was she hiding behind the door?
Oh, like through the hinge? Aye.
Grim. I climbed up the rest of the steps, trying to recall the inside of her house from the 2 or 3 times I'd been inside. I knew that the room immediately to the left of the entryway was the living room, and most likely where Isabel was supposedly sitting. I knew that there was a light switch right next to the front door. What the hell, I thought. I'll just go inside for a minute, say hello, and then shut the door for her. It'll give me peace of mind to actually see her instead of just hearing her voice. Glanced over my shoulder towards my own house. Bailey was still barking her head off, which was unnerving, but the sight of Alice keeping an eye on me gave me some peace of mind. It was just a house, I told myself. Just a normal house with my own neighbour inside of it. Taking a deep breath, I stood at the threshold, shocked at how, despite my closeness, the inside of the house remained pitch black. I thrust a hand inside, and it disappeared like I dipped it into oil. As I groped around for the light switch, my fingers brushed against something solid, something fleshy. I jerked my hand back, certain that I'd just touched a person. Isabel? I asked from the darkness, and then from inches away came the sound of laughter. The laugh was deep, gravelly, and mocking, and it did not resemble my neighbour's voice in the slightest. Before I could react, I heard the quick pitter-patter of footsteps against wood. It grew quieter and quieter, and I realised that it was the sound of someone running away from me. After a few seconds, I thought I heard a door open and shut in the distance, the back door perhaps. Again, I stuck my arm inside, and this time I was able to find the light switch. I turned on the light and was relieved when the interior of the house revealed itself to me. A normal entryway, with a normal coat rack and a normal shoe rack. No eerie intruders in sight. However, the relief was short-lived because when I stepped inside the house, I turned to the left, walked into the living room, and was greeted by the sight of my neighbour.
Oh, dear.
Or at least, what was left of her.
Oh, someone's been chomping on her.
She was splayed out atop a couch.
Oh?
Her head lolled off to the side, her empty eye sockets and toothless, wide-open mouth looked like 3 holes had been dug into her face. Her face itself was red. Not, as I initially thought, because it was covered in blood, but because it was missing its skin. She had been flayed, not only her face, but her arms and the top part of her torso. It looked like someone had been methodically working their way down her body until I'd interrupted them. Paralysed by fear and confusion, I stood in place. I waited to wake up from this nightmare. I waited for Isabel to walk in from an adjoining room and tell me that I was looking at a Halloween prop. I waited for a dangerously long time, and then I staggered out into the rain. When I returned home, I immediately called the police, though I had trouble putting what I'd seen into words. They arrived quickly, took my and Alice's statements, and then went across the street to investigate. It's been days now. They haven't told me anything, despite my repeated calls to the station. I can't get answers. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I just keep replaying the discovery over and over in my mind's eye. The voice, the feeling of brushing against a body in the dark, and of course, the sight of that poor girl's mangled corpse. I have too many questions to count, but 3 rise above the rest. Who the hell was I talking to? How did they sound so perfectly like my neighbour? And why is it that every night since I found the body, Bailey hasn't stopped sitting by the front door and growling?
Yo, want some scary shit? Now, our next segment is a compilation of quite a few stories about the same character. Now, the first young man stated he saw this character, let's call him the hatman, when he went to bed one night when he was 18 years old. He stated that he started feeling tingling in his head and buzzing, and he started hearing a high-pitched beeping in his ear. All of a sudden, he couldn't move. He looked towards his bedroom door, and there he saw the shadow man, or the hat man, whatever you want to call him. That was not his last run-in with the hat man. In fact, he states that to this day, he still has the run-in, only that every time he saw him after that, it got worse, as if the hat man went into his brain and found out his deepest fear, which was being buried alive. So now, when his sleep paralysis kicks in, it feels like someone is sucking the life out of him. He said he doesn't feel the pressure, but somebody is sucking the life out of him. Our next young lady had her first run-in with the Hatman when she was 13 years old. Again, during sleep paralysis, she stated that the room got very still, calm, quiet, and even though it was a storm outside, she couldn't hear it anymore. She looked out the corner of her eyes, and there he was, standing there. Hat, collar popped, red eyes, shadow. Now, let's talk about the brothers. They were walking home from a football game, and they stayed in a hilly area. It was dark, but, it was lit by street lights. Brother A says that they heard a sound coming from the right side of the hill, and they both looked, and there was a man, an older gentleman, and he had on a large brim hat that covered his face, a 3-piece suit, little trench coaty. They didn't pay it any mind. They were not spooked to begin with. So they continued walking, and they said that they could feel him getting closer, but not hear him getting closer. So they moved over to the right side of the street, and he walked past them. When he walked past, they said hi. He mumbled something, nodded. Again, they were not able to see his face, and he kept walking. Not strange, right? Well, they continued, they walked, and they were about a quarter of a mile away from their home, and it happened again. They heard the sound, they turned around, and the man was there. This time they kind of picked up the pace a little bit. Not quite a run, not quite a jog, just a little power walk. Anywho, he caught up with them again. This time he walked past them. They didn't say anything. He didn't say anything to them. When he disappeared in front of them into the darkness, they took off running home. And when they got there, they told their mother what happened. Their father had passed away recently, and the mother goes to tell them that their father and his brother saw the same man. And ever since the first time they saw him, they continued to see them for the rest of their life. Now, who is the Hat Man? But it seems that he feeds off of fear. If he doesn't scare you the first time, he'll try his damnedest to do it the second. Anyway, y'all be safe out there. Some of us have never seen him, thank God. But if you ever do, remember, he feeds off of fear. That's some scary shit.
This is someone's experience being possessed. And this one is yet another submission from South Africa. I am back with another spooky story, and you actually don't want to watch this one at night. Hello, my Haitian sister. I have a spooky story for you all the way from South Africa. This will be creepy, and I advise you to watch it at night. It hits different. So the person who submitted this story wants you to watch this late at night. Okay. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Bay. So this happened in 2022 when Bay was in 12th grade during finals week. So Bay and a few friends asked one of their teachers if they could have a study camp because they were accounting and business students. The teacher, for some reason, offered them her old house. There were a mix of boys and girls. Now, everybody wasn't that close, but they all knew each other. So for the first few days of living together, everyone was cooperative and tolerant. They created a system: who cleans, wash dishes, who cooks. The boys did the more heavy-duty tasks, like fetching water for cooking and drinking, because water in the house wasn't drinkable. They also took turns showering, as there was only one bathroom. And there were 2 bedrooms facing each other. Boys took one room and the other girls took the other side. Nothing creepy happened at first, but one of the girls started to casually piss everybody off. Let's call her Zizi. Nobody liked Zizi from the beginning because she was dramatic, rude, and always tried to push people around. They tolerated her until they couldn't anymore. They called the teacher and they voted her out of the study group. She was sent home 3 days into the camp. Like, how insufferable could you be? So after Zizi left, there was finally some peace. They all focused on studying. Now, on the 5th night, just 2 days after Zizi left, the group started praying and one of the girls began acting weird. Her eyes would twitch and roll all the way back. She kept saying she felt hot whenever they prayed or worshiped. Her best friend claimed she gets like this because it's an ancestral gift. Yeah, right. They brushed it off and basically ended the prayer quickly because everybody was uncomfortable. But that wasn't the only strange thing. But one night, while they were praying, the more they prayed, the worse she reacted. This time she started convulsing, screaming in a language that nobody understood, just staring at them. And that's when everybody realized she was possessed. They prayed for over 2 hours in the boys' room. And the creepiest part, they saw shadows moving outside, and it only rained inside of the compound of their house. Nowhere else. When they stopped praying, the rain also stopped. In the morning, everything around the house was soaked, but the neighbors' houses in the street were completely dry. It made no sense. So let's call the girl who's possessed Tessa. So life went back to normal. During the day, everybody's doing what they have to do. During that day, they prayed again and things got worse. They held hands, and the stronger they prayed, the more the demon lashed out. It started jumping from Tessa to the rest of them, but it was only among the girls. Now, when it entered Bay, the person who submitted the story, she felt this burning sensation, like she was on fire. Suddenly, she could see not with her eyes, but with her spirit. And no matter how much she blinked, she couldn't snap out of it. She says all she could see was Tessa in a cage in a place that looked like hell. Everything was burning and souls were being tortured. Every time she ran to her to open the cage to save her, she turned into a demon, she being Tessa. Whenever she tried to run towards the light or portal to escape, Tessa would transform again. At this point, Tessa is fighting to open her eyes. She could hear everybody praying louder and louder. When she finally snapped out of it, she was crying. Everyone was scared of her. And when she explained what she saw, everybody was just looking at each other and looking back at her, horrified. Another girl got possessed next. Let's call her Ginger. What she described scared everybody so badly that they had to kick her out the room as everybody continued praying, as it rained with thunder and lightning. So from the kitchen, Ginger calls out to everybody, claiming she saw a dark shadow and blue light enter the girl's bedroom. So when Tessa's friend finally walks in, something told her, check one of the girl's food parcels. And inside this unopened cereal box, she found brown coins. Everybody freaked out and called a nearby pastor. Luckily, the boys knew a man of God who lived close by, came and prayed for all of them and talked to Tessa while she was possessed. And the pastor said that this demon was put on Tessa by a family member to destroy her. And he warned them, do not pray with that girl, only for yourselves, because whatever was inside of her could destroy everybody. So Tessa leaves and everybody just tries to forget that night. Since none of them had exams the next day, they decided to unwind the evening. It was getting dark and everybody was doing a little smoke session, and most everybody that was there joined. They had Russian beers and 3 big rolls. And once everybody was smacked, strange things started happening again. They couldn't say it was hallucinations. Tessa was standing in the corner saying weird things and looking at them in a way that didn't feel human. For some reason, this is all that this person submitted. There's no part 2. This is all they submitted. Thank you guys so much for watching this spooky story. If you have a spooky story that you want me to tell, feel free to submit it to me right here on TikTok or on Instagram. If you want better, longer, and spookier stories, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I want to say thank you all my abducted humans for all the birthday wishes. You guys made me feel so special this weekend. From your favorite Haitian homegirl.
The story I have is one that still sends chills down my spine every time I work the night shift. For reference, I work as an ER veterinary assistant in an office building on the 3rd floor. Most of the time is spent doing paperwork at the front desk of our office. The front desk is the first thing you see when you walk into our office, so no one can pass me without me noticing. Plus, the night shift is usually pretty quiet, with only me and my coworkers there that late. On this particular night, I had 2 other coworkers working with me. I was eager to get out of there because I was tired and ready to sleep, so I kept looking at the clock. My job requires me to write down the time when a patient enters our office, so I look at the clock a lot anyway. At about 11:45, both my coworkers came from the back office and said they were running down to the lobby to get some coffee and asked if I wanted anything. They left down the hallway to the elevators, and I continued doing paperwork and watching a show on Netflix. About 5 minutes later, at 11:50, I heard the elevator chime and thought, well, that was quick. But no one had walked down the hallway. It was creepy, and since I get spooked easily, I called the security guard at the front desk in the lobby to see if he was messing with me because we were friends. He said no. He hadn't gotten up to do his midnight rounds yet, so it couldn't have been him. I decided to ignore it, hung up, and went back to watching my show. 10 minutes later, at midnight, I heard the elevator chime again, and this time I heard voices of my coworkers and the security guard laughing about something. My coworkers made their way down the hallway as the security guard went up more floors to do his rounds. As my coworkers walked in, I just looked up and smiled at them as they made their way back to their offices. Here's where things get weird. At about 12:15, the elevator chimed again for our floor, but no one came out. I yelled back to my coworkers and said something like, "Abel's really making sure he does his job right tonight," assuming it was the guard checking floors. My coworkers laughed from the back rooms and agreed. A couple more minutes went by, and at 12:30, the elevator chimed for a 3rd time. I yelled back to my coworkers and said something like, "Abel's really making sure he does his job right tonight," assuming it was the guard checking floors. My coworkers laughed from the back rooms and agreed. A couple more minutes went by, and at 12:30, the elevator chimed for a 3rd time. I must have looked pale, because walking down the hallway were my 2 coworkers with coffee in hand. They saw how scared I was and asked if I was okay. I told them that they had just walked in a couple of minutes ago, and I was talking to them earlier. They looked confused and said they hadn't left the break room until just now. I think I looked horrified enough because the doctor told me to go home early and get some sleep. I didn't hesitate and packed up and left. On the way out, I asked the security guard if he had ridden the elevator with my coworkers when he was doing his midnight rounds. He said he had, even though they had barely just walked in the office, and he had done his check 30 minutes ago. I freaked out and didn't take another shift for a long time. Nothing has happened since, but whatever it was that night was extremely horrifying.
Let's read some more scary stories that were sent to us. Was that an orb or a cat hair? I don't know. Anyway, for context, this happened at my fiance's grandmother's house. When they moved in, they discovered a Ouija board built into the floor of the attic. So about a few months ago, I was staying the night at their house so I could spend time with my fiance and his grandmother. Him and I were laying in bed, and I felt the bed move, so I thought it was my partner. I didn't know what time it was, so I uncovered myself from the blanket only to have my fiance standing above me on the bed, watching me and smiling. I yelled at him to stop and that it was scaring me, but whoever it was just stood there. I kept yelling at it to stop, and a few moments later, my partner ran into the bedroom from the bathroom across the hall and asked me what was happening and what was wrong. Apparently, I had tears running down my face and my eyes were bloodshot red. I left that night to go back to my house. This isn't the first time something has happened there. Girl, you would never, ever, ever, ever catch me back at that house again. When I first moved into my new house, weird things started happening like a week later. This was my first personal experience with this thing that we now call the Shadow Man. I share a room with my sister, but she was at a sleepover this night. My door was cracked open just enough to see out of it. My bed is positioned so I can see out of the door. I look up from my phone because I had a weird feeling, and I see this 6-foot-tall thing just standing in my doorway. I'm too scared to move, but I immediately hide under my covers and start texting my parents. 10 or 15 minutes later, I come out from under the covers and it's gone. My mom also experienced something when she was home alone. She was upstairs cleaning the playroom and she heard something up there. Thinking it's my dad, she says his name and turns around, but there's nothing there. Another time, my mom and sister came in the house and heard a little kid say, "Mommy, is that you?" No one was home except them. Lastly, the most recent thing that happened was when my family was all in the kitchen. We heard a door slam upstairs, so my dad went up there to check it out, and all of the doors were shut. The windows were also closed, so it couldn't have been the wind. One of my classmates used to live in this house, and I told one of her friends about it, and he said that every time he went over there, he just felt like something was off. Thankfully, nothing has happened in the last few weeks, but we never know what's going to happen next. Okay, first of all, I'm glad the parents believe the kid in this situation. They're all like experiencing weird things in that house, and I definitely think that they need to look up like how to cleanse their house, because it definitely sounds like there's something spooky in there.
So this house behind me is the Cunyon poltergeist house in Fermanagh. Yes, Cunyon, not Cuneen as everybody else seems to call it. This was the site of Ireland's first recorded exorcism, and we haven't seen many in this country at all, but 2 of them actually took place in this house. If I'm not out in like 5 minutes, then I don't know. There's not even any phone signal here anyway, so like if something happens, I am noticing that my phone literally just started to like, the frame rate sort of dropped a lot there. The story starts in 1911, and Bridget Murphy became widowed after her husband died in a tragic work accident. And that was said to be the start of their spout of bad luck. The family started to get plagued by a poltergeist in this house, this very, very house, and it's creeping me out looking into this dark room down here. There's nothing there, I was down in it, and so she kind of thought that she was going crazy, and she started inviting like friends and family over to the house, and they were seeing firsthand for themselves and hearing stuff, seeing things being thrown across the room, seeing shapes appearing on walls, hearing like agonal moaning coming from upstairs, which makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because as you can see up there, the hauntings got so intense that Father Coyle from a Wires Bridge was called to visit, and he also couldn't believe what he was experiencing in the house, prompting the Vatican to grant permission for 2 separate exorcisms to be performed, both of which failed after beds were seen levitating several inches into the air and recurrent banging on the walls, often to the tune of the Soldier's Song. In 1913, Bridget and her 7 children emigrated to America, where the poltergeist was believed to have followed them momentarily. The captain of their ship actually had to tell them off due to the number of complaints about the deafening groans that were coming from their cabin. After a few months, the hauntings on the Murphy family stopped, and the poltergeist is believed to have returned back to Cunyon. Priests and paranormal researchers alike still carry grave warnings about visiting the property, and the general consensus among Bridget's friends seemed to be that her family started to practice witchcraft after their father's death to try and contact his spirit, but unknowingly invited something sinister into their home.
I'm feeling banshees. Like, it's the home, yes, carried that, still has that residual energy, of course, of that, like, of the poltergeist. Like, that home needs to be torn down and let the land replenish and renew it. As long as it's standing, you're going to have that energy. But I'm feeling the energy of all that land. Like, I'm seeing and hearing banshees, but I'm not feeling it as like bad and scary, just like aggressive and powerful. But I'm also feeling like elemental energies and fairies. And even though that home, yes, has that scary poltergeist energy, I'm just feeling so much other amazing energy there that if and when you tear that house down, you can just, the earth will replenish itself. Here's the thing, that poltergeist energy was attached to somebody. It wasn't just living in that home. Someone brought it in there and it left with someone. And it attached itself to different people, but it didn't live in that home. Now, that home is what everyone says it is. It has that darkness and it has that residual, but I don't feel a poltergeist living in that home. I feel that poltergeist was attached to somebody.
Probably one of the most disturbing and unnerving missing person cases I've heard is this of Dennis Martin. Dennis and his family went camping and hiking in Smoky Mountain National Park in 1969. Dennis was only 6 years old, and him and his family came upon another family that were also hiking and had young children. They all stopped to rest, and the kids started playing together, and Dennis and his brother were playing hide and seek, and Dennis decided to hide in some bushes. His father was watching them the entire time as they played as well. The thing is that Dennis never returned from those bushes that he was hiding in. He just never came back out. So a search began, and it was very widespread. Like, the Green Beret were there, FBI was there, local volunteers, everybody came out to find this child. This search went on for over 6 weeks, and the only thing that they found was a sock and a shoe. This spot down here where it says Spence Field is where he went missing. And up there by Rowan's Creek is where another family that was hiking reported seeing a big, hairy man carrying a child. They said they saw this because they heard a child screaming, and that's what they saw. And wouldn't you know it, this is located right on the Appalachian Trail. A very widespread theory is that this was a feral person, and he kidnapped Dennis and took him somewhere in the woods where he's still not been found to this day. Especially because the area where Dennis went missing and the area where he was seen was so far apart in such a short period of time when this report happened. It doesn't make sense for him to have ran through the woods at 6 years old with one shoe on through terrain like that in such a short period of time.
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Let's talk about one of the most disturbing and controversial moments in Mexican TV history, the TV Azteca Lisette interview. Now, I hate talking about this case because it is generally one of the most shocking and heartbreaking things I've ever seen. So just giving you a serious warning because we are going to be talking about real people here. On March 22nd, 2010 in Huixquilucan, Mexico, one of the biggest missing people cases would occur as young 4-year-old disabled girl Paulette would unfortunately go missing in her own home after returning from a 3-day vacation with her family. This would prompt a 9-day search for Paulette that would ultimately result in various missing billboards, search parties and signs, various TV interviews with the mother, including the infamous TV Azteca Lisette interview, which would later become one of the most disturbing and controversial moments in Mexican TV history, which you will find out why later. But in the interview, you'd see Paulette's mother talking to TV journalist Lily Teres on Paulette's bed, exactly the place where she was last seen before she went missing. In the interview, the mother discusses what were the events that led up to her finding out that her daughter went missing, in which she said that she basically put Paulette in bed the night before. The next morning, she was just gone.
¿Cómo la encontraste? Pues extendida, o sea, pero ya la muchacha la había venido a buscar. Todos sus muñecos estaban en su lugar. En perfecto estado, se la llevaron en pijama, sin zapatos, porque no me falta nada.
Then later, Lily Teres would ask the mother what she think happened to Paulette, in which she says this. Just pay very close attention, okay?
O sea, por lo que venían era por mi hija. Un secuestro. No, yo creo que voy a descartar eso. No ha habido nada.
Now, unfortunately, days after this interview, specialists would be measuring the bed for their investigation. And as they uncovered this side of the bed, they would notice a head poking out, as well as some skin peeking through the blankets, which would unfortunately be Paulette's body. Investigators concluded that she passed from asphyxiation due to her, I guess, rolling over in her sleep and just getting lodged in between the bed frame and the mattress, meaning that at the time of this interview, Lisette and Lily were allegedly right where Paulette's body was the whole entire time, making this interview one of the most disturbing and controversial moments in Mexican TV history. Now, unfortunately, it would only get worse, as this wasn't only a heartbreakingly shocking situation. People started to suspect that the mother had something to do with this, as allegedly she was coaching her other daughter what to say to reporters during this time, saying things like, yes, don't say anything, just tell them that we're very sad, because news outlets like to spin things. Also, her doing and saying some unusual things that a grieving mother wouldn't typically do, such as her getting caught behind the camera laughing and saying that she started to think that her daughter was kidnapped by UFOs. So many other reasons that the public didn't agree with, including Paulette's father, who later divorced from her, saying in 2010, the only thing I can say is that for me, it wasn't an accident. Listen, if you look this case up, you'll see thousands of people demanding justice, just wanting to know why the family and all those interviewers and investigators didn't notice any foul smells coming from Paulette's room, why the mom had such odd behavior, and so many other things. People are just really saddened by what happened to this little girl. I'm not blaming anybody. For all we know, she could have just been acting strange because of her grief. It is very strange how nobody noticed anything during those 9 days. Regardless, this is a very heartbreaking case, and just knowing the backstory and watching this interview just makes me feel so uncomfortable. But anyways, my heart is with Paulette and her whole entire family. Everybody keep an eye out on each other, especially during the holidays, and stay safe out there.
I'm back with another story time. This story time is from both of my parents. They was like 19 or 20, I think. And it was the summertime. It was like 7, 8 o'clock at night. So like, you know, in the summertime, it started getting dark around that time, like really, really dark. So they decided they want to go walking through Central Park with this friend that they had at the time and me. I was only like 1 at this time. So they're walking through the park, having a little conversation, and as they're talking, they start hearing like people yell at them like, watch out, like we coming through. And they heard like something coming fast, like if they were on bikes. They turn around, and when they turn around, they see a whole bunch of people, like 4 or 5 people on bikes coming like full speed towards them. And they have like flashlights on their heads. They also have flashlights on their bikes. So either my mom or my dad was like, all right, y'all, like, watch out. Let's let them go through. So they, like, part their ways, but they still walking in the same direction, and they continue off with their conversation. And while they're having their conversation, I think, like, 2-3 minutes go by, and one of them realized, like, okay, like, they take it kind of long to, like, pass us. Like, why is nobody passing us? So they turn around, and they don't see those people on the bikes. And it was weird because they didn't hear the people go in a different direction. They didn't see the lights go in a different direction because the path was only a straight path. Like, they couldn't really go nowhere else unless they wasn't going on a path. So they just was like asking each other, like, did y'all see what the fuck I seen? Did y'all hear that? And they all was like, yeah, like, we heard and seen the same thing. And they was just saying, like, that's mad weird. If I was in that situation, I would probably think that we all thought that we seen something that we didn't see, because when does stuff like that happen? Especially in Central Park. If y'all want like more scary story times, I'm gonna be trying to post a lot more, but I also will be reading like y'all guys' story times, because like I'm running out of my own personally, and my parents have some, but they're eventually gonna run out of some too. The only thing that my dad did mention was when they was searching, trying to look for, like, the lights or whatever and to see where the people went, he said it looked like a big, bright light, like, flew up in the air. And they all was, like, looking up at it, like, what the fuck was that?
A bullet-ridden car, bodies in the trunk. Who killed the couple at Lover's Lane? Hello, true crimers. This is the case of David Sloan and Cheryl Benham. Viewer discretion is advised. Cheryl Benham was born in 1950, and at the time this case occurred, she is 19 years old. Described as just one of the nicest people you would ever know. At the time, she was dating 21-year-old David Sloan. He was a student at the University of Oklahoma. They were described as a really happy, very much in love couple. They loved spending time together, and they definitely had a future together. Unfortunately, though, the last time anyone would ever see this couple alive was on the night of May 9th, 1970. The night of May 9th, 1970, David and Cheryl were actually at a small party at David's frat house, which was, I guess, just off of campus. And this, by the way, is in Norman, Oklahoma. The couple was last seen leaving the party at approximately 11:30 p.m. But by 2 o'clock in the morning, when Cheryl had not returned home yet, her parents knew something was wrong. And so they actually reported her missing on the morning of May 10th. That's when they realized that no one had seen or heard from David after they left that frat party. His roommates, other students at the school, hadn't seen him. So now they have a missing couple. So there is an area near that portion of Oklahoma called 10 Mile Flat, which had a lover's lane there back in 1970. I don't know if it's still the same now or not, but it was a popular place for people to drive their car and have a secluded location to make out and do whatever else. But family and friends would go to this area searching for the couple. And that's when they found David Sloan's vehicle. It was immediately alarming to them because there were about 30 or so 22 caliber casings just scattered around the car, and there were bullet holes all over the car. There were blood smears on the outside of the vehicle. There was a broken pool cue on the front seat. There were personal items that eventually they would figure out belonged to David and Cheryl, also scattered outside the car. Now, the couple was not seen in the driver's seat or the passenger seat or in the back seat, but there was blood on the trunk, and so they opened the trunk and they found the couple. Cheryl and David were both dead. They had both been shot to death. Cheryl was completely nude, and she was also beaten as well as shot. David was fully clothed except for the shoes, and his shoes were actually never found. But he was also beaten as well as shot several times. David's wallet and the keys to the car were missing, and so they were thinking that this was maybe a robbery, but they don't know what kind of money David even had in his wallet, if there was anything really at all. They also don't know, they couldn't tell if Cheryl had been sexually assaulted or not. They never were able to conclude that. But again, she was found nude. There is a chance there could have been a sexual motive to this, but without physical evidence showing that, they didn't know what the motive was. They didn't know that this maybe was just a random killing. Could have been a thrill kill, because these two individuals had no enemies. They had no jilted ex-lovers. They hadn't been into any kind of argument with anyone. No one knew why this would happen to them. And also, no one really knew they were going to be in this specific location. They were there and really no one else was. So the idea of someone knowing they would be there seemed kind of ridiculous, but also maybe someone was following them. It did appear that the vehicle, including the trunk latch, the top of the trunk, the steering wheel, the broken pool cue, everything they could possibly test for fingerprints, had none. It was more than evident that someone had wiped the car clean. They found one partial palm print, though, and that was it. But it really wasn't a good print. They really couldn't do anything with it. There were no shoe impressions in the dirt. There were no tire tracks in the dirt, indicating that the killer wiped all of that away. Kind of sounds like this is someone who knows what to do. Almost like a cop. Enter Frank Gilley. Frank Gilley at that time was a police officer for the Norman Police Department. However, he had only been with the police department since March of 1970, so just a few months prior to this case happening. He was previously a sheriff deputy in Amarillo, Texas, but then he got fired for assaulting a prisoner. He never told that to the Norman Police Department when he was going for a job there. He withheld that. 4 days after the double homicide here, he is fired, but also I think they allowed him to resign. Frank stuck around in the area, and apparently in 1971, he had been accused of impersonating a police officer in areas known as Lover's Lane. Frank was seen harassing couples in their vehicles at several different Lover's Lane areas in Oklahoma. 10 Mile Flat, on the night of the double homicide, that was his patrol. That night, he was working in 10 Mile Flat on the night of the murders. When the murders occurred, he was on duty. But it wouldn't be until 1991 when he was officially indicted and charged with the murders of David and Shelley. So he goes on trial, but the problem that prosecutors had from the get-go was they did not have the murder weapon. All they really had was someone saying that at one point Frank Gilley owned a .22 caliber rifle. They were shot with .22 caliber ammunition, but that gun was never recovered. The shell casings that were found around the car, so in between the 1970 investigation and the 1991 or so trial, that evidence had gotten lost. They didn't have it to present at the trial. So all they had on him really was circumstantial evidence, and it was weak. They had no physical evidence tying him directly to these murders. You have him harassing couples at other lovers' lanes in Oklahoma. He did have a bit of a violent history, but there were no fingerprints. This was before DNA was even a thing. There was no smoking gun, if you will. Nothing to link to him. And so the jury came back with a verdict of not guilty on all counts. The jury was honest and said the prosecution just did not prove their case. They did not show us any physical evidence. All they had was circumstantial hearsay, which that's how it's supposed to work. You have to be able to prove a person's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They couldn't do that. They will tell you that they believe Frank Gilley was their killer, but it doesn't matter now. He can never go to trial for it ever again. And even if he could, it wouldn't matter, because in 2002, he died in a nursing home. Many believe he was innocent of these murders, but there are those who believe he was guilty. Nobody else has ever been labeled a person of interest or a suspect in the murders of David and Cheryl. The Norman police believe they got their guy, they just couldn't prove it. So unfortunately, the murders of David and Cheryl may remain unsolved forever.